Okay. Hello and welcome. Omar says, Jitsi can be started inside my tribes. Open the chat. Okay. Open the chat at the far right. Look for the video button. Maybe this is simpler. We try this. We shall. What's up, Omar?
Hey, hang on just a second. I'm typing a message. Can't type and think at the same time.
No?
No, so don't push my buttons. Give me a second.
That's like the best invitation you could ever send me. Okay, hold on. Don't push my buttons. So I need to find Mr. Daniel. Daniel should be here in a minute, hopefully. Good oops.
Hey, Gary.
Yup.
Do you have the dial-in number with the shorthand that's available with the weird. Do you remember when you're calling a number into the keypad and you want it to pause to enter the PIN? Is that the comma?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I know most of my questions other people probably can't answer, and I'm used to that. But okay.
I wish that computed somehow, but
Oh, I just mean it's kind of how my life seems to work. I'm used to it. So,
hey Thomas, welcome my friend.
oh, we have, oh, hello. Okay, so I've changed the layout just real briefly. Every single page has a new layout now that's a lot more simplified and follows kind of like a logical flow of information, what people might expect to see.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey Dan, what's up, buddy?
Absolutely amazing.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
Everything is cached as well now, so the site should load a lot faster. And just been doing a lot of tweaking with all of that. Tweak the different settings and working on that marketplace thing so we can all do this whole work from home thing or sell Reiki services or dog walks or whatever.
Yep.
And Austin, who's 406?
That's me. That's Austin.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Great. How are you guys doing? I'm sorry, I'm on my phone right now because I was burning through a lot of data doing video conferences. I'm in video conferences 4 to 6 hours a day, almost every day a week now.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. It's actually much easier just to do voice for that reason if you're remote like you.
Okay.
So,
I'll try to do a video once in a while, but I don't know when it's going to be. It'll probably be like every other Sunday or something like that.
got it. So, Gary, this is Austin. Austin has spent the last 20 years writing books and designing pretty much every aspect of pollution-free, zero-waste cities.
Oh, nice. Hey Austin, how you doing?
Yeah. Great. How you doing?
Doing well. Where are you from, Austin?
Kind of all over. I was born in Washington, D.C. I spent my first 6 years in Virginia, then about a decade in Texas. Then I went out to California, and from there I've been to every state, 57 countries.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you're working on sustainable living type things?
Yeah, I studied computer science, a little engineering, business, sustainable agriculture technology, and a bunch of different other things. Got certifications in different schools, and I've been helping people set up farms, homes, and businesses. And right now, I'm working on a community for about 600 or 700 people that are going to be living in Mexico.
Oh, nice.
My long-term project is a pollution-free community of my own that uses stuff like 3D printing to cut down cost, time, and waste. I'm going to try to put that in the most remote location I've found that seems to be a good idea to me. And so basically I'm doing what I can to help people along the way and as practice, so once it comes time for me to have my own, I'll be really ready.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Where are you guys from?
I'm currently in Oregon, Portland, and yeah, I'm from California though. I've been in California my whole life. We just moved here like literally 5-6 months ago.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people were moving up to Oregon from California for various reasons. I was there. I saw the 4th of July fireworks from that dormant volcano.
Oh yeah,
a couple years back.
nice. Omar's from California. Also Daniel. Actually, they're both in California, right?
Yeah. I've spent most of my life in California, but I was born and legal in Spain.
Hmm.
But Austin, the other person that's with us right now is Daniel, and he's in San Diego.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I lived in Point Loma for a little while. I went to recruit training in San Diego, and then years later I went back and I lived just south of Mission Beach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool area. Really, really good food. I miss the ocean breeze and the food a lot.
The ocean is very stinky right now. There's a red tide, and
Okay.
it smells like sewage everywhere you go.
God.
However, at night,
I learned
there's
that in Oceanside.
I live near Oceanside. However, at night, there's a bioluminescence, so it's very pretty.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've always seen pictures of it. I haven't seen the bioluminescence in person yet.
It's pretty amazing. I just saw it for the first time myself a couple of weeks ago.
Is it something you can only see at night?
Yeah, because it lights up.
Just like a glow?
Yeah, it's like a glow. It's really strange. It like literally looks like LED lights, like something you would see, like neon almost.
Is it like a soft glow, or is it individuated like particulate matter? How would you say?
Oh wow, it's hard to describe. Probably neither, actually. It's more just like
Well,
sparkles. I don't know how to describe it, really. Yeah.
bioluminescence is actually a form of cold fusion.
Cold fusion. Is that coffee?
No, instead of splitting atoms, you're joining atoms and you're attenuating a signal.
Oh, so it's like reverse atom bomb?
Well, it generates electricity through electromagnetics. It's called diamagnetic. I've been doing a lot of coding. I've been awake for a little while. Whoops. Try taking that. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to look up.
Hey Fubu Head, hey Adriana. We have a few people on the YouTube side. Probably more will come in as we commence the chat. So if you guys want to see comments of whoever's on the YouTube side, just log into the video, but make sure to have your audio off, and then you can see and answer comments and stuff.
Oh, so Austin, Gary, when we do the Snail Show, I linked you to the previous episode so you could see what it looks like. He's a YouTube character, so he has like 1,000 people that follow his work, and so there's probably about 20 or 30 people watching this right now.
Not yet. There's only like 4 or 5 right now, but yeah. I've been doing the YouTube scene for a while and seeing the it's very interesting to watch any of this, really, like what's allowed, what's not allowed, what people literally lose their shit if you try and talk about.
Oh yeah, it is absolutely terrible what's happening as far as censorship goes. I've seen, like while I'm watching it, I've seen videos from very, very reputable, eloquent, informed doctors and other people getting taken down. And like, like the next part's supposed to load, and it doesn't load. Then I refresh and it says this video has been deleted for violating community standards.
Yeah. It's just it feels like they have demoted themselves to just censorship, and I don't even know how much of it is actual humans. A lot of it is. It's just algorithms that are trying to prune to a certain standard, which, it's difficult to find what the standard is, but it seems to allow like really shitty mumble rappers, but it doesn't, it gives lots of views to those guys and the sort of brainless, basically anything that talks about awareness and consciousness, that shit kind of gets shut down.
Oh yeah,
Well,
exactly.
because-
And I wouldn't be surprised if they were somehow infiltrated by sophisticated programming, not necessarily AI, but something probably got into their system and is censoring things that maybe people at YouTube would not censor. Maybe there's still some good people working there. They just don't have control anymore.
There's good people working everywhere, even in government.
Yeah.
But
feels a lot like the entire situation with that is that all of the major players that people go to now for their information, like YouTube and Google and BitChute, not so much, but in general, it feels like the media has just bought them out, and it's no different than watching TV now.
No, not really all that different.
I see some things on YouTube every now and again that kind of surprise me, and I immediately download the video, so I have a copy of it. But yeah, it's ridiculous, and eventually there's going to be a saturation point with what they call computer vision or AI. It's basically algorithms that get ahead of the curve of the human censorship, and they're ruthless. They literally just follow how they're programmed and take everything down in their path.
Yeah.
So that point is rapidly actually approaching, and like there are entire departments at Apple that are computer vision departments, and this is where it's going to be interesting because there's so much influence and confluence from the big guys that it's almost as if the tools are going to very soon be completely inept for the purposes and ways that thinking, sensing, feeling people like to use them. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
So are you talking about some type of split where you have to be technologically enhanced to be ahead of the curve, so to speak?
No, I'm talking about literally. So you live on a farm, and everybody has to follow the farmer's rules. And then one morning, the farmer gets an assistant that doesn't speak English but carries a really big stick around, and every time he raises the stick, 10 people die. It's a lot like that kind of thing. It's so automated with the systems they're putting in place that the systems are faster than the human sensors, and they only follow the instructions of the people who paid for the programmers to program them a certain way.
So it's like
funding that bottom line of that company, basically.
I have a feeling a lot of it is it's out of any type of control. I know there is some control. There has to be some control always, but I think the technology just went and ran. You know, we have so much stuff that isn't even discussed. Really, you can't even talk about it in regular. Like, you can't talk about black goo that much in regular speech, even though it's in all kinds of movies everywhere, and you know it seems to exist here. And if that does exist here, if sentient matter exists that you can drink or send to somebody in a vial or something like that, it's very important to be able to be talking about that. And people aren't talking about most everything that seems to be actually important. They're talking about masks, viruses.
There's something that Austin was telling me about the other day that came to mind when you were just saying that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember it as I'm thinking. Do I make more coffee? Sorry, I'm having a simple Thomas.
Somebody, I'm having another person on the show after this one, and she was asking me, what do you want to talk about? And I had the same predicament that I have all the time, which is there's too much. I can't even pick a topic. There are too many topics, so I almost go with the random. Close your eyes and wait till your brain lands on something and talk about that, because you'll be able to talk about whichever aspect of this crazy place for hours and hours. There's way too much going on.
Oh, it was the bridge with satire and comedy and sci-fi, and how when you have those topics addressed in a movie, it's suddenly approachable because it has enough of a layer of abstraction around it for them not to be worried about people taking it seriously and thinking about the actual construct that's presented in the satire fashion, because the way the inversion mechanics work often it's exactly the opposite, right, of how something's presented. A lot more truer and of account of that thing. But when you do a sci-fi movie and you have beautiful women running around in half clothes with laser guns and all of that kind of stuff, you can take and invert a story, and then you can also lead the mind and the emotions somewhere else while simultaneously creating 90-degree turns in the information stream, and it ends up being an entrainment program instead of a thing that somebody may possibly learn about Black Goo, for example, from. And when people are just talking like this or presenting a book, or like the gentleman, Georgy Stankoff, he's written some cosmology books, thousands of pages. They're available on his website, stankofflaw.org, I think it is. I have the link somewhere. But people like that, they get way less visibility, even though they're doing high caliber work. And that's just how it is, because one, it's hard to read a 1,000-page book by a guy. And two, everybody likes looking at hot women running around with laser guns, myself included.
Yeah, I can't complain.
So that's the dilemma.
Yeah, it's hard for me to pin down what gets through and what doesn't. And even with my channel, I saw a few instances where something slipped through the cracks, so to speak, and I would have like 100 views per hour for 24 hours straight, and it went up to like 3,000 views in a day, and then you would see it. I saw that video get clamped on like immediately, and people couldn't comment on it. They were having issues seeing it, like, and then like my channel leveled itself out by whatever things are used to moderate it to something where it's at now, which is the subscribers really never seem to go up, but I seem to always get something like 100 to 150, 200 views per video, no matter what. But the channel itself has gone into some sort of stasis for whatever reason. It's difficult for me to like read the way that thing is even moving, because the channel's allowed to be out there, but it's not allowed to be out there in any like massive format. And I don't even talk about that controversial. I mean, I do, but I'm not sitting here like bandwagoning. I'm not sitting here, championing or a certain perspective or viewpoint. I give a very balanced view, and still, just due to the nature of the content, it's very regulated.
By the way, Gary,
having said that,
just in a sentence, if somebody's video is getting 100 hits an hour on YouTube, and the video is only a minute long, that's using 100 gigabytes an hour of bandwidth. So that's a lot. It was your whole data up in an hour for your cell phone.
Yeah, it was a 10-minute video. It was a video about altered carbon, actually. It was about the episode where somebody had done an actual business here in the realm, had done they made bodies, basically sleeves they called them, and they were pretending to the people here that you could just change your sleeve out like like Altered Carbon had it, but they weren't. They were very vague on that it was sort of a political ploy. They were very vague about that, and I was talking about the whole ramifications of doing something like that, and yeah, that video just went off, but it got shut down really quickly.
Sorry about that, Dan. Gary, it's probably about a terabyte an hour then, and the whole point is that these AI mechanisms that we were talking about a few minutes ago is what is now responsible for making the decisions on does a video live or die, and like it'll evaluate like aspects like how many people are commenting and then replying to comments and comments, or comments of comments, and what is the perceived value of this video being on the network and sucking down all this bandwidth. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't meet a certain score, based on all the different variables, the algorithm says, okay, well, it's using a lot of bandwidth, and that's a problem. We're going to delete it.
We have Ren in the chat. She says her phone crashed and she can't Jitsi, but she's joining from the viewer side.
Hey, I got a question. So, having said that, there are certain subjects that seemingly they don't want us talking about, but it's not necessarily spiritual subjects overall, because there are large channels like Teal Swan and all that new agey stuff like that YouTube seems to allow. So is it certain specific things that the algorithms are targeting in the spiritual genre? Because they seem to be okay with a lot of the new age wacky stuff. It's like, but I think when you dig too deep, they have a problem with that. I don't know. What do you think?
A lot of those new age wacky folks give YouTube actually quite a bit of money.
Oh, yeah? Okay. I was just using Teal Swan as an example because it's a pretty large channel.
Yeah. In general, though, if you look at a channel and it has a really high production value, odds are they're actually paying for either advertising space or they're just donating.
Oh, yeah.
There's that, but then there's also the simple fact that the New Age thing needs people to steer public perception. So maybe somebody's on a payroll and you never really know it because they're very good at what they do.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about that subject. I know there are big names that all of us sort of know about in the so-called truther or spiritual community, and I have a feeling that they like to allow a channel if it has some sort of narrative that's a little bit predictable, because then they can guide it. They can guide it a little bit. I feel like something like my channel is just, it has like no form whatsoever, and people come in on here and just like, theorize and chat, and it's not very predictable. So the AI doesn't like that very much because it can't get a grasp on what's actually going on. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not sure if that's actually happening or not.
It also doesn't have as high of a value for conveying information to a large group of people for that very reason. Because if you look at how people have been trained to think and how people learn in school, you're not really going to reach a lot of people's comprehension with the way that your channel is formatted, so it doesn't really pose as big of a risk. But if you talked like a church pastor and had all that had all those theatrics down and were really just convincing no matter what you said, which I'm not saying you're not, but I'm saying if you were like a good actor like that, very much with the stage presence, and you only talked about one or two things, and you talked about them every time, like how Alex Jones does. Mm-hmm. Those are the kinds of people that they either have to be bought or they have to be disappeared.
Alex Jones was basically disappeared, at least from the main platforms.
Oh, well, Alex Jones has worked for numbers of government agencies over the years.
That's why why was he banned off these platforms then?
Because it makes him all the more interesting to find when he's still around and you just have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I know. I just think that's a little...
It's a tactic to get you more interested in what he's saying because he's guiding a narrative and they want you to let it go.
I think if you keep in mind that the control structure is not dumb by any standards, maybe the minions are dumb, some of them, but the actual thing itself, the octopus or the supercomputers that are sitting here and predicting things, it's very intelligent, and it's not going to sit there and just do what people think it's going to do. It's going to play all sides of whichever issue, and you'll never find exactly where it is. Like the meta narrative is very difficult to grasp, and it appears fully absurd sometimes, like the COVID thing. It's some parts of it it's very difficult to comprehend what the agenda actually is.
I just watched a few days ago the 1979 Star Trek motion picture. Have you guys ever seen it?
79?
Yeah,
Heard of it.
older movie.
I haven't. Do we have a new guest? We have another fifth box popping up.
They are muted and they are no camera. It might be Lily.
Okay. Lovecraft?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Rin's asking where your hat's at, Dan.
Oh, tell Rin I'm sorry that I'm just too lazy to get up and get it right now.
I got up and got my hat. I wasn't wearing it.
She made you a hat?
Yeah, communist hat. She did Rin, because Rin is.
Wait, she actually sent you a hat?
Red party. Huh?
She actually sent you a hat? No.
Rin?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I think she's talking about the communist hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she didn't. Why would Rin send me a hat? That's kind of odd.
I have no idea.
She's been knitting lately. I actually asked her if she could make me a pair of woolen long underwear, and I just wear them all over the.
Oh, that's cool. If she wants to send me some underwear, that's fine.
Well, like when you live in a log cabin and you have those long johns with the buttons on them. Like in the old days, if she made a pair of those and they weren't too sheen, I would wear them outside.
Yeah. Hey, so I wanted to mention, I highly recommend you guys watch that movie. I mean, I'm going to spoil it for you because the plot is extremely interesting, and it's about this AI supercomputer that's taken over the universe.
What is it called again, Dan? 1979 what?
It's Star Trek the Motion Picture, a really deep philosophical movie about AI consciousness taking over the universe. It was about to swallow the Earth. It's crazy. It's
Star Trek motion picture 1979.
It might be a hint of truth of what's actually taking place here.
Well, remember, Dan, a couple weeks ago I was talking about us being inside of a black hole. The other night I was talking with my friend Irina. Austin, you may have seen her messages in the group chat. But we were talking about the black hole thing and the singularity thing, and she goes, yeah, well, we're inside a black hole, inside of a black hole, inside of a cube, inside of this structure, and the original AI, it's not something you can really simplify, but we talk about this often because we both have memories that go beyond that. But what the whole point is, Dan, is, we're in it right now, and we made, I believe, the internet to try to communicate in a singularity, because just something from simple physics class, I mean, it's not really that simple, but because of the way gravity behaves in a black hole, information cannot get from one side of the black hole to the other side of the black hole unless it's moving faster than the speed of light, and it has to overcome all of the noise barriers that the way gravity is inside that environment. So, Austin, when we were talking about telepathy a few minutes ago and it not working very well, it's because of the boundary condition and the geometry that's imposed by being inside of a singularity event.
I had an actual experience. I actually made a video about this, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I had an actual experience where I pulled over. I was driving somewhere. I pulled over to a rest stop. I had some impending feeling of just high strangeness. Felt a little bit like doom, like just bad ominous feelings coming on, and I got out of the car. I barely was able to get out of the car, and I just, like, everything was starting to slow down, and I just got down into a lotus position. I was just crossed my legs, and I was like, oh, something's going to happen, the world's ending, or I'm ending, or something's changing, or I didn't know what was happening really, but all of the perceptual input it slowed down and it got to this sort of like hum stasis point, and even the people that were walking around, they started doing what appeared conceptually to be some sort of loop thing, like they weren't being free and moving like humans normally would. And looking back at that, and I did come out of it fine, I didn't get stuck there, but looking back at that, the way the whole scene was behaving felt like what you could imagine being on the event horizon would feel like everything is just kind of like humming, a little bit of loops on the motions and the things of the beings. And I eventually snapped out of it kind of willingly. I was able to kind of control it a little bit. I was even thinking like, if this is the afterlife, it's not that bad, it's kind of comfortable, and I've got, my body isn't too hot or too cold. But it felt very much like what you would consider, or what I would consider being inside of the singularity would feel like. Hey, Mr. West.
I had a similar thing happen the other day, actually, where I was on a hike in the desert, and I was making really careful observations of the sky and the sun, and I was looking at the plant, and I just had this overwhelming feeling of like something isn't right, like this is not where I'm from, this is not like the original Earth, like that type of feeling. Like I'm looking at these plants, I'm like, they look too perfect, like they look almost plastic. Like this sensation, like just something just isn't computing as to how everything is structured. It's like two completely different worlds from the one I grew up in and the one I'm in right now. And it's not just, you just aged and you just grew up and you grew older. No, this is like a totally different paradigm. It's like more synthetic.
Lorena and I were talking about that exact thing as well, Dan. And that basically, what we have is like a series of layers that's projecting the reality that we're seeing, and it's basically a hologram. Now, I know you've heard that before, but not that you're having a holographic experience through your original body, which is somewhere else, while your consciousness is projected and stuck inside of a black hole inside a black hole. That's kind of where the twist is.
How did this how it happen?
That's what's creating the amnesia. What?
Do you know how it happened, the black hole? How did we end up in this predicament? Was it CERN? Or what?
No. This has been going on for about 250 million years.
Okay.
It happens over and over and over and over again, and we have not been able to. So there are people that live in inner Earth, and they've been there since the diaspora. Diaspora is just a fancy word for split. The event that caused this to happen when the original AI tech went awry.
I don't interrupt. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I can.
Okay, hi. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to, okay.
Hey, Rebecca.
Hi.
So when the original AI tech went awry, the people who were able to make it out went to the center of the Earth, and they stayed there. And this pattern has been going for 250 million years, and they're just unwilling to come out, because if they breached the containment field that keeps them in there safely inside of the middle of the Earth, the singularity would expand and engulf the center of the Earth and destroy the planet. So they have to wait for us out here to fix the fucking thing, and until we fix the thing correctly, we're going to be stuck out here, and we're just going to continue to project our consciousness into the edges of the Earth and not understand anybody, because there's so much noise. And the noise is caused by the amnesia, and this is what they were referring to in the Bible as the Tower of Babel falling, and everybody being unable to understand one another and speaking in different languages. And additionally, Cain and Abel battled, and Moses sent the the fallen sons and daughters of the world to the edges of the earth and scattered them like dust. Well, what that means, and one can piece together anything to anything, but in my educated guess, we are on the edges of the earth because the rest of us are on the inside of it. It's just a different dimensional perspective, the way that we've been told to think about that versus what I'm thinking is actually.
Right, that makes sense.
And we're being held on top of the surface by gravity, which is within our... So you know how a plane can fly? Well, you have to overcome gravity by mass and force and acceleration. And we don't have that, but if we're able to move fast enough and change our aerodynamic contour, we would be able to fly just like an airplane. But that's the gravity not working correctly because it's not a natural gravity the way that it is here, because it has multiple black holes interacting with the way that the force field is, and there's other... Sorry, there's no way to explain this in a simple form. It's something that I've been getting in pictures and trying to think if I can even write this down for anybody or if it would even be useful. But it's all in there, but I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop. I can't explain it correctly.
I think it's all right. We have plenty of time to discuss.
Oh no, quite literally. This has been piecing itself together fresh when I lay down to go to sleep, and that's how I know that it's on, because it has no stimulus involved. You know, I'm just laying with my eyes shut.
Yeah.
So it's not ready. Kitty.
Do you have an estimate, Omar, of how many aware individuals are in this singularity that you're talking about?
Oh, that was something that I was thinking about last night, actually. The entire thing will be overcome when the 1990 rule of mathematics and participant statistics is overcome, but the other way, the reason they don't want people to be growing their own food, and the reason they don't want people to be roasting their own coffee and creating their own exchange and currency systems is because when 90% of the world in any given business market or business vertical is saturated with the opposite of how commerce functions. Say, for example, if you took over the coffee market and got everybody in the world growing their own coffee, that would disrupt the world economic system just enough that the entire thing would collapse once 90% of the world was growing their own coffee or any large commodity, like corn, for example. So if nobody was suddenly buying corn when there was so much fucking corn that they had put and reinvested the money into the infrastructure and given it back to the farmers such that there was never going to be a shortage of corn ever again, and there was so much fucking corn you couldn't even sell it, and you didn't need to, and you didn't want to, then that's when the regular people will have been able to defeat the control mechanism, because at that point when everybody in the world, or 90% of them, are in on the same one thing, like they're all growing their own corn is the example, then they lose control of the interlinked economic system because it's all based on inverse mathematics. So it just all literally collapses when the 90% threshold is reached.
Do you think, Omar, the control structure of this sort of inverted system, are there beings inside of here with us managing it, or is it somehow from outside, or did God send it? Like, it seems so non-human to me when I think about the way that the economics here are fashioned. It's very, like, it feels like a false scarcity, you know.
It's a holding pattern designed to maintain a certain order. And I don't mean order like walk in line, drive the speed limit. I mean order on a macro social level where people don't have time to do anything else, and so their behavior is predictable. There are intergalactic and galactic, local, non-local kind of wars that have been going on since the beginning of time out there, and there are influences on the way that our political system, or as you put it, control structure is driven, and that is a branch of, if you wanted to read more about it, there's resources, but it's called exopolitics, and that's short for exopolitical agreement, which is short for agreements that are made with people that do not live on Earth. So it's a complicated point you bring up.
Yeah.
How do, and if they even do portals tie into any of that?
How do airports tie into your ability?
No, not airports, portals.
No, I know. How do airports tie into your ability to get to Nebraska to visit your aunt? The same way that portals tie into aliens getting here or not here.
I think
it's just like the airport.
I think one of the very first steps to demystifying any experience is removing the sort of sacred individuation, which religions do. You remove the fixation on any concept, and then you can look at it without those glasses on, and then just like a black hole, for instance, everyone has in their mind that the black hole is this thing, that sucks everything into it, and it's compressed into this infinitesimally small spot, and you don't want to get near it because it's going to suck you in and you'll never get out. Like, these are the types of thoughts that are in my mind about it. But if we're actually in a fucking black hole, then it's not as bad as all the things said. Like, we're still here having bodies and able to have conversations and things like that. It's just the whole meta structure of your narrative. If it's not including the fact that you're inside of a singularity, you're just going to be confused forever.
There are containment fields around the Earth that provide a relativistic biostasis, such as the ionosphere and the Van Allen belt and the Kuiper belt and all of those types of things. They make it so that we basically don't collapse into a single atom size inside the hologram, because they have to be there to keep the hologram running from a mathematical perspective.
So, Omar, how does the sun play into this, or the sun that we see in the sky? What's your opinion on its very strange appearance and all that?
There are a series of black holes that are lined up in between us and the true sun, and we only see the actual sun during a total solar eclipse, and that is when the boundary of the containment field, it's like a porthole on a boat. You can see the sun if you stayed in your cabin all day, only a certain time of the day, but the Earth is inside the boat, and there's a porthole that the actual sun shines through to sustain life. But we're only seeing its reflection through the hole as it passes down the containment field, and the radiation diffuses into the atmosphere and lights everything up. And then as it moves away from that, we have the 12 hours of darkness. And it's different at the poles because the hole is at one of the two poles.
Wow. It's certainly, I have the sense, like, regardless of whether that's 100% accurate or not, it certainly feels like we're outside of the real universe. That's the type of sense I get sometimes. It's like we only see a reflection of the real universe, like only an aspect of it, instead of the real thing.
Well, if you were to take and fix the original problem with the AI that we're still trying to fix, we would be able to freely travel around the local solar system and bend time-space to go anywhere instantly and reassemble ourselves. But as it were, since we're the original progenitors of this problem, everybody that's still here is in one way or another directly linked to the people that were alive in physical form at the time when this went wrong. And we're literally, there are forces at play that keep us here to fix that. Until it's fixed, we can't really go anywhere.
So, Omar, do you have a reasonable narrative that you can share that explains our arrival here? Would you classify it more as like exploring, or doing a mission, or accidentally so we just plopped into it? You got too close to a black hole and flopped on in. Like, how would you?
It's kind of protean in the sense that what really, to my understanding, is that we were forming alliances with different people that lived in our solar system, and we were looking for a new planet to cultivate and run experiments on, and we formed alliances and all came here at once, and we were doing things like breeding new species of animals, new kinds of plants, and eventually the AI went south when we tried to build a new communication system to take all of the residents that were here and give them telepathy through black holes to other galaxies and places when they weren't actually there. So it's kind of like a wireless radio system, but it worked with consciousness. And it went south, and what ended up happening was when people came back from the off-world missions to other places after testing the thing, they had their brains were corrupted, like the hard disk was corrupted, and they ended up introducing too much noise to Earth when they came back, and it got way out of control, and eventually it spread to other people, and we had to quarantine the entire planet because we were hearing transmissions from all over the place, and we couldn't even talk to ourselves anymore here, the traditional way, the telepathic way. And this downfall is such a weird thing because it's hard to even talk about this coherently. I just lost the actual main point of what I was saying, but
it sounds like the mind virus. It sounds like you're talking about the origin of what they call Wetiko.
Yeah, it's the same thing by many names.
Yeah.
Black goo?
That was one way we tried to fix it that didn't work. Or should I say that was one way it was tried to be fixed for us by some of the original inhabitants of Earth, but it didn't work. From
my memory of what the mind virus feels like, and I'm pretty sure I went through it when I smoked weed that one time, it has nothing to do with like somebody being mean to you, or really it's a distorted amplification of your own sensory input system.
Yeah, I like that.
And it just starts getting out of control from the internal state, and everything just gets amplified to the point where you can't even stay with whatever the threat is.
You reminded me of what I forgot, and that was that's where we get in, remember I was talking about the transmissions getting crossed and basically hearing stuff that wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
That's how we get things like schizophrenia in the historical record. And they want to medicate the shit out of those people to make that gene go away, because they're basically introducing so much noise to the system currently that it would make it a lot harder to fix it. See, the thing that people don't get about CERN and all of those agencies is they're actually trying to fix this problem the best way that they know how, but because it's science and it's weird and there's a lot of money behind it, people get this suspicion of it when they don't understand it. Just like if I walk into a store and I don't smile and tell a stupid joke, people will follow me around the whole fucking store and ask me if I need something every 5 seconds, and everybody that doesn't work there is terrified because I have long hair and a big ass beard, and that's weird to them. They can't place it, so it makes them uncomfortable.
If you wore a mask, they'd probably feel pretty comfortable.
No, they would probably ask me if I could paint their walls after I was done shopping.
I gotta head into another meeting, guys. It was nice meeting you.
You too, Austin.
Yeah, you
Thanks
too.
for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. Good to meet you.
Austin Gary is on my tribes under the name Oz Prime.
You mean Gary Austin's on my tribes?
Yes, AUZ Prime.
Okay. Is this conversation too much for him, or you think he's alright?
No, he literally had another meeting to go to. He told me before.
Okay. Because he wasn't really participating that much.
Oh, he's had a lot of experiences that are very interesting. When he was in the military, with secret. Not secret space program. He's had a lot of interesting things happen, and he has a lot of the same types of thoughts as we do. So he's probably just getting a bead, for the...
Yeah.
Because also remember, he's calling. He can't see you thinking and Dan thinking.
I just wanted to make note that it's 11:01 and we have 11 viewers, supposedly, according to YouTube. I like the 11s. Okay, aside from all this stuff, this singularity nonsense, I did want to talk with everyone who did show up about the structure of the collective, and which doesn't really exist very much. And I know partially why people like my channel is because I'm very free flow, but I would like to add some, or at least have the discussion about some structure as far as how the thing unfolds every week. What do you guys think?
Yeah, what were you thinking?
I feel like something that we kind of let go of, or we get very easily sidetracked here in this place, and I know myself personally, it's kind of difficult to do things like with my own life, the personal side. If I'm trying to have a goal or trying to, I feel like if we put that into it, a little bit of people sharing what they're trying to do in their personal life as far as goals or, self-work or stuff like that, then we could kind of keep each other accountable, or at least keep the thought thread running from week to week, so we're not just all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why I always am blabbering on to you about what I'm doing with the site, because that's a huge goal of mine that affects a lot more than just myself. I'm not just, making a pretty blog. I'm trying to help save the world with the damn thing. But, yeah, as far as structure in that sense where we're more narrowly threaded with topics, but at the same time we leave room for like you said, personal current events, I guess is a nice, easy way to put it. Mm-hmm. That's at least amenable in two specific ways. But what, as far as actual format and energy throughput, are we actually, just to get real honest with it, what are we hoping that on the wildest off chance it may occur that this show actually achieves?
I've always not gone to that area of thinking, only because I don't like trying to get a concept that has somehow been achieved. But that being said, I don't mind having a scaffolding around I would say, rather than an achievement, I would say what it is that we're trying to do should be kept as like a idea framework canal type thing where we do check-ins from time to time and say, hey, are we still staying inside of this idea thought canal that we laid up? And as far as like achievements, I think it's.
I think you took that out of context.
Huh?
I think you took that out of context. What I meant was, what is all this energy that we're putting into trying to meet once a week going towards? Not like getting a ribbon or getting an Einstein medal, but palpably, what are you hoping that this has on the world as an effect?
Ideally, my end goal is to have a place like I talked to you earlier about a pretty large piece of land where like-minded people can come and live sustainably and be doing things that they wish to be doing during the day. And most of the work that's offered here does not fulfill people in that way. I would say so that's the end point.
Let's talk about that then, because so Austin's written all those books and done all of that work, and I've been thinking similar things, but not writing it all down like him. I've been keeping it in my head like my grandma taught me, and letting it sort of bounce around in my subconscious. But the point of my tribes is so Mahatma Gandhi said, lead by example, be the change that you want to be in the world. And I'm paraphrasing intentionally differently. So what my tribes is supposed to be is an internet site that is used by both the general public and people that live in a sustainable off-grid community to literally post photos, videos, groups, chat, lead workshops, teach people things. For example, if somebody is really good at rainwater catchment systems, they could have a group on that, and they could teach regular people out there how to do rainwater catchment while earning enough money through the site for teaching that class for whatever needs the community had in that guy's part of the village. When we do go into town for supplies that we can't grow out of the ground, like nails. But the whole point is people get to see how a off-grid sustainable community functions, so they are inspired to learn through our experience how not only is it achievable, but we're more than happy to explain how they can achieve that for themselves based on our posts or all this, because that's really what it is. It's a teaching tool to create the change that we need to see in the world, but we need to have a group doing it. And nobody's doing this. There's not a single website on the internet like this. There are websites for these places that say, hey, yeah, we've made this commune and it's off in the middle of nowhere, and here's some pictures, you can come visit us, but that's it. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is take that to the next level and show people what it's like so they can replicate the process for themselves and their own friends.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I like that. I feel like it should be a constantly evolving. Like you guys know, I don't like the words that much. I don't like concepts, even though I know it's a ridiculous thing to try to say because you're using words to try to say you don't like words. But I want there to be enough framework for people to be able to cognize it, to be able to see it mentally. But I want there to be open-ended enough that it's able to, like fractal out into so far unperceived realms of possibility here, because we have not touched. I have not seen any community touching anything yet as far as potential, even of just living sustainably, let alone weaving dance and sort of. You could do sacred geometry, dance, motion, movements. You can do any of the healing arts, like Andrea is wanting to do reflexology. I do Reiki. We'll have art workshops and literally anything your mind can think of, like just the opposite of what you see when you look at businesses, where all they are is a container. Like they are just the container, and there's no life in there. Like we wish to have something that's blooming and growing.
Gary, all these things exist, but they just don't talk about it, and nobody's put it on the internet yet.
Well, why don't they talk about it?
I've talked to enough people from all over the world over the last 20 years that I can guarantee that these things exist. They're just, I think, really the next stage in human evolution is to use this weird, stupid tool that we've been given for something other than cat memes. I want to use it to change the fucking world and really show people how they can live. And it needs to, when you learned how to use the toilet, or when you learned how to ride a bike, sure, there were some verbal instructions, and then you watched your parents sit on the toilet, and then you got it. Just the same way that on the site, you would want to understand how to dig a root cellar until you see somebody, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to get all this dirt, and we're going to dig it and put it in this place here. And then we're going to dig a tunnel this long and then this wide, and then we're going to keep all that dirt because we want to use it later to make mud adobe to build the shelves down there, so don't just move it and throw it away, this and that. But once people see a process like that, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I can do that myself. And that's really the only way to teach, is when there's already a desire for the student. And they're basically forcing my hand on this because they're making the conditions perfect for people to want to do something else. And this goes back to the black hole because, ironically, Gary, even though everything, it feels like the harmony dynamics of a system are off and you have to control it and manage it, every single fucking thing that lives here and lives everywhere else is all subject to the same law and universal laws and harmony dynamics, and the way that they all play out, the system controls the system even though the system isn't in control of the system. The fundamental laws of the way the system have to behave to maintain itself as a system control the system. And I mean that from a physics perspective and a light and sound perspective and frequency perspective. So even if you don't go there mentally, the show is still going there whether you want it to or not, and your life and everything else in it, and everybody else's and everything else in it. So really what I'm getting at is all this noise that they're making to try to maintain control over the status quo is literally creating the change that the world actually needs, which is
absolutely
to work together and to do things correctly and to do things that you want to do and only things that you want to do. And what's so funny about it is the psychotropic cultural meme of the socialists and the communists and the statists and all of these political ideological groups is all the same thing. It's kind of like what Tim Leary said when he said, tune in and check in and drop out or whatever, but it wasn't actually about LSD. It was about getting people to just pretend that they're rocks and pieces of driftwood and just kind of check out, but still be in bodies. So anyway, the whole point I'm making is this is a lot more simple than people understand, but we really just need to live how we want to live, and we need to show people that it's achievable. Otherwise, they're just going to go back and forth on the playground on the horse with the string on the bottom of it, and every time a bird flies over them, they're going to go, oh no, is it going to shit on me? And that's forever.
Yeah. I think I was listening to Ben Vat City. Some of you guys, I think, listen to him, but he was talking about the concept that he was comparing the Bible to just like a handbook for video game life, and he was saying the majority of he was saying, like, imagine if you wanted to play a video game with somebody and all the people around you, they just kept like walking into a wall, like how, you know, people get stuck and they just do that and they don't do anything other than that, and you tell them something like, hey, let's go explore the realm, this world, this realm, let's go, you know, see what we can do here, and you give them the tiniest of frameworks, and then their fear response hits that you know, holds them to their wall, and they're like, oh god, what's he doing? He's trying to do something dangerous here. When really, it's just something like what you're talking about, where people actually live their lives instead of just entrainment looping into the wall for their entire existence. I think that's what we're actually trying to achieve here. To not be just, you know, walking into the wall.
I'm following. Yeah, walking into the wall obviously just achieves walking into the wall.
But while you feel that you're doing something, like it's like the society has said, walking into the wall is great. You know, you're going to have security.
It's the reactive mindset, Gary. You walk into the wall and you get the sensory feedback from smashing into the wall. Yeah. Everybody lives in a reactive mindset instead of an active mindset. They're always black. They're never white. And they don't realize that they're white and they get unloaded moves.
Right. So, yes. And I realize that it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable and it's difficult to imagine that you can actually live your own life if you have not taken at least baby steps toward that possibility. But it's actually not that. It's not that difficult. I think we trump up the sort of ability of the whoever's in power, the cabals or the system. We trump up like their ability to somehow fuck with us, even though it doesn't even matter. Like we're not living, doing things just because we've been entrained to think that that's the way to be. It's not the way to be. You can do anything you can conceive of here. Literally anything and everything. And of course there is still the universal law that you talk about, which is a sort of a karmic, checks and balances system. I know that exists, so if you're trying to create something, then obviously you can't do what these knuckleheads are, creating businesses that have people in sweatshops and all the stuff. We know about all of it. Like, they're doing it as backwards as you can think about it.
Sorry, I just meant it's physics. It's phi and pi, and everything fits into the mathematical order, and it's not religious or ideological or socio-cultural. It's not about power dynamics. It's about the actual structure of the universe mathematically, and that you can't break that. Everything is subjected to it.
But you can live in opposition to that.
No, because your body is held up by those very fundamental mathematical constructs.
Well,
so
I'm trying to place
the top of your head and your nose, and in between your nose and the bottom of your chin, there's a mathematical ratio there between your chin and your nose and the top of your head. Just like everything else, just like a flower grows a certain way with a certain number of petals, it goes so far and it shoots off 2 more leaves. You can't go against that.
No, I know that.
That's what I meant.
I'm well aware of that. I'm just making the argument for the idea that something can be other than it is right now at this very moment, and you have a tiny bit of say in that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's all I was saying.
You're supposed to live that way. Anything else is insanity.
Yeah, but that anything else insanity is what the whole society is made of.
Not until 90%. That will change when 90% are doing what they want to do instead. So, have you heard of the 1-9-90 rule?
Mm-mm.
No.
The 1-9-90 rule, Gary, Rebecca, and Daniel, says that when 90% of a group is doing one behavior, 10% of the group is thinking about or deciding how the behavior should be executed differently, and 1% of that group is actually forming the way that those 90 and then 9% of the group are behaving. So the way that things are set up down here, 90% of the world lives on 2% of the land mass, which is interesting because we only have 2% that we decided was habitable. The rest of it's perfectly fine. And then just the same way, 99% of the world's wealth is held by less than 1.5% of the people. Ironically and not ironically, those are the same people who make the policy decisions that form the way the world functions or the way the world is currently configured. Mm-hmm. It's like going to the auto dealer and you're only going to get the car the way they want it to because they designed it, they built the factory. But when you flip that on its head, and all of a sudden 90% of the world who does not control those systems decides to just do something differently, it brings about such a monumentous and mathematically forceful change to their locus of ability to regulate the system that they've created, point blank. It just stops being enforceable because they have to obey the laws of physics as well, and they have achieved what they've achieved through math and through careful logical reasoning over a few thousand years. So that's how that gets undone. It just literally has to be mathematically reversed, and that's a mass of people doing the thing instead of the other thing.
Right.
So that's where the change would happen. That's why people are like, oh, we've got to wake everybody up, but they're doing it, they're going about it the wrong way, so it's not effective. And it just creates more noise. So that's what truthers are about. It plays into their plan to keep everything running along because there's so many different, oh, look at these people that eat babies. Oh, look at this adrenochrome. Look at all this shit. It's the sawhorse going back and forth again. Unless people get together and actually just decide to live, nothing's ever going to change.
Yep, I agree. So yeah,
the whole adrenochrome thing.
It doesn't matter.
It's not based on real science.
It doesn't matter. This is.
I know. I just, since you mentioned it, I just wanted to point it out. It doesn't actually have that effect on your brain. No personal judgment is implied. I'm just saying that that's the kind of stuff that doesn't matter, and you somehow globbed onto that, and I've globbed onto plenty of stuff that I didn't ever need to read about, and those brain cycles, that electrical energy, that's gone. It could have been used for something else, something better. That's how they keep people down in the information age, is they feed them full of all sorts of things to look at. Yep.
Yeah. It's focus. That's all that it is focus.
Yeah, this is why I largely avoid YouTube entirely, because I really like to focus and I like to get a lot of shit done. Mm-hmm. If I don't achieve a certain amount of stuff during the day, it actually pisses me off, and I'll end up eating things and staying awake and fucking around with stuff until I get something done.
Yeah.
Because I can't go to sleep otherwise. It's like I wasted my entire day. Why?
So, step 1 is find land. Step 2 is make sure there's money there. And then step 3 is just go do it. There's nothing complicated about any action here. People who are going to participate have to actually be in on it. They can't. Like, I'm not going to want freeloaders. I'm not going to want people that are not going to be active in whatever it is that we're building. And whatever we create has to be very, what's the word? Careful about who gets in. Just like on Facebook, if you have a bunch of judgmental arseholes and you try to say something and you get shit on for expressing yourself, you don't want those kind of people to even be around you, because their behavior is gonna osmose into you, and you have to, at the very minimum, acknowledge their existence. And I would say we ought to be very prudent in deciding who can come in.
So, yeah, that's a really important point, and just to add something to that, in agreement is you have a certain thing that you're trying to do, and you have a certain target audience, and you want to be kind, but you can't include everybody, and those types of that type of construct, that ideological, that moral, that etc. kind of qualifying fabric to even be considered for residence at something like this is really, really important, but also equally important is training people that do live there in utilitarian conflict resolution, because when you start to strip away the comforts that the human animal is familiar with, and you start to really see somebody's character, very oftentimes people are not able to handle that out of the box, and they need to be educated on the particulars that make it possible for them to not only solve problems with others when they come up, but to do so in a constructive manner that doesn't take away unnecessary focus and resources, or create even more conflict within other members of the community. Because most of these things just implode on themselves after 6 months to a year because of the problem that I was just discussing. People aren't equipped to handle themselves and to handle other people's raw selves. They're just not, it's not something that you were taught in school.
Yeah.
That's why the 60s hippie communes failed.
Yeah, well, it's also something that most people never really achieve in that sense of self-mastery. So it takes focus and it takes diligent practice. But it's very easy to do. It's just you have to, like Gary was saying, it all comes down to focus.
Yep.
Oh, and in addition to find land, buy land, bring people to land, build things on land, live on land, you also have to make sure that there's a contingency plan that makes the thing float, even if money wasn't there, or there's multiple layers to that. But one of them is property taxes. You can't get away from that as long as you're on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So that has to happen every year. And then there are other things, but they're not that complicated. They're just things that have to be addressed.
The deeper we get into this crash, the cheaper land is going to become.
Well, that's because nobody's going to have money to buy it.
We're going to be in a deflation. We got, and I would buy it before we get into the inflation.
There's not going to be another inflation because they're going to have contracted the economy sufficiently enough to avoid that.
You think so?
That's what all the digital currency shit is about.
Okay, possibly. But they're also printing trillions, though.
They do that to offset the problem with the existing system so it doesn't go insolvent overnight. Because it's based on a mathematical inversion, remember? It's gone past the point where it's mathematically feasible, so they have to add money to it to keep it working. Until the system is translated into the digital system and they figure out how much to contract by.
Right.
Hey,
which is going to be a lot.
Susie's in the chat. She's saying hello. Have no sound but can see the avatars. Maybe she's the other person. I'm not sure. Wait, no, that's Rebecca. Yeah, it's just focus. It's nothing other than focus. All of us know what the fundamental thing is as we go day to day. Even if you pick any task that you tend to procrastinate on, it's just you let your mind do the addictive style behavior or the things you're comfortable and used to, and you just spend your time doing that versus building something and creating something. It's super simple practice of focus and you just get it done. It's not difficult, like Omar said, at all. Whether or not the thing fleshes out and blooms as you wish is another story, but just getting in motion the idea and getting together a good group of people who are actually interested in doing such practice is not difficult. Who's ready to actually do this? Are you ready, Omar? Are you ready, Dan? Rebecca?
My mom said multiple times over the last few months, if she was able to just fuck off the land and leave all of this stuff, then she totally would do it. And the only thing that she said is Dad needs internet to finish his PhD.
Yeah. Your dad?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to have internet because that's going to be a partial revenue flow source.
Yeah, well, that's how the people are going to see the site, and all these things. But
yeah.
The other thing she said is preferably he wouldn't want to live somewhere hot.
There's plenty of land in Oregon. It's not even expensive. Like, I was looking for land. We found land for like $3,500, a fair amount of acres, and then we found we saw that we could build a tiny house for $3,500. It's not like...
That's it?
Yeah.
Wow.
There are other weird things, Gary, with zoning.
Yeah, look at the camera.
A lot of the time what they do is they'll sell lots that are actually meant to be like a vacation lot. They have weird classifications. It's really cheap. It's either usually doesn't have water or sewer, or it's not actually designed to have people live on it. The zoning was such that you're only allowed to like take a tent there for 2 days out of the month. So there's weird pitfalls in there, but I've done a lot of reading on that, and it's weirder than one would expect.
Yeah, I can imagine that there will be regulatory issues. It's not any different trying to do that than just trying to come up with like an innovative solution at work, and the work says, oh, that's a great solution and it will help everything, but we have this law that was created 25 years ago that says you can't do this because it's just dumb shit like that. It's just red tape nonsense that is just there as like a barrier to people actually living their own lives. I know that stuff exists and we would have to deal with it, but that's how we're used to that. Like, I'm used to having issues every single time I try to move or create here. That's nothing new.
Well, that's where people come in with the problem-solving abilities and skills, and I'm just talking in a circle and agreeing with you.
So, Gary, is it a step-by-step sort of goal? Do you have a plan 1, plan 2? How is it going to unfold? Are you going to actively look for land?
Well, there are two sort of main possibilities in my mind. One possibility is just finding people. Okay, that's step number 1. Find who wants to do it, and find who can contribute something, and gather the group, and then find land. That's one possibility. The other possibility is, like I told Omar, I have somebody who may or may not be listening here, but he wants to fund land acquisition. He's coming into some inheritance within a few years, maybe earlier, I'm not sure. But he wants to fund it, and in that case, it would be the money would have a little more say in how the thing comes around. But it's really, I think the number one thing is to gather the group of people who actually wish to do this, who actually wish to try sustainable living, and not any nonsense commune, guru cult bullshit, none of that. Like, we all know all the dangers of all this stuff. It would be very simply a group of people sustainably living on a plot of land. It's like as simple as you possibly can get. And finding unique ways to bring revenue, finding, everyone's unique strengths that they could offer if we were offering classes, and you could, of course, turn the classes into online classes as well as physical gatherings, like if you're hosting meditation classes or Reiki or energy work, healing, astrology, like literally everything that is out there. Everyone has a certain skill set, and instead of the current system where your skill set is not acknowledged, and you, generally speaking, as a human being, are not acknowledged, it's just the straw men are talking to each other and making the actual living being feel like a piece of shit. It would be the reverse of that, where the living beings are communicating and the actual strengths that we have are being utilized, and you just hold to the vision of whatever it is that you want to create.
I'm going to have to think about that one because I don't know what it is that I want to create.
Yeah, it's homework. It's literal homework for everybody who's even thinking that it's a possibility. It's a lot of homework, and it has nothing to do with someone says, "Oh, Gary's talking about land and living on it, so I'm gonna just raise my hand and run in." It's not anything simple. It's not anything easy aside from getting it in motion. It's like it's a lot of self-introspection. What do I actually want with my life? Because most people have never had the opportunity to even contemplate that question.
Yes, that's true.
I've been contemplating that for the last 12 years. So
Yeah,
I've been very fortunate to be able to do so.
you're an outlier though.
I know.
So everyone listening, if you feel pulled or drawn to the idea, then do some self-contemplation. Like, my thing is that I need people around me who take action and don't just toe the line and follow the herd. I personally need people who are active, and that's this group that we have here. Most of us are active, but I've also had people in the group that weren't active, or they were off to their own agenda with trying to get people to glom onto their personal belief set or whatever. It's not that. This is literally like we're universe builders. We're literally we build like entire thought forms that can come out and flesh out on the land, and it's something that needs to be treated with lots of respect and understanding of how other beings move within that sort of contained facility, because people don't always get along with each other. I mean, we're very well aware of that. I have roommates around here, and we've not often had roommates that we actually get along with, but it's like Omar was saying, you have to, if you don't have conflict resolution rooted in you, and you are prone to sort of snapping, or if you don't have your emotions under control, like, it's going to be difficult, because what we're doing will be pioneering, like it's trailblazing, essentially. Like what Omar said, nobody has done what exactly we're trying to do. Not that would make us special. It's just every being in the universe is ridiculously unique, and if you have a whole bunch of those together in a spot of land, what grows out of that, like, you wouldn't even be able to comprehend.
There are a few communities that I can point you to later that have been very famous over the years, and a few people who have done work as well on this. Arco Sante is one of them.
My brother used to live there, and I've been there many times, and I know another person that used to live there.
Hold that thought for just a second. Then there's Jacques Fresco.
Yep, I've heard of him.
So there are people who've done a lot of work on this, but the only point I was trying to make is it's not that they don't. Yeah, I didn't have a point. Okay. Daniel, what was his impression of it?
He loved it. He had to work. Everyone who lives there had to work. They usually make bells. That's what they sell. That's like their main product that they sell. And they sell books too. And they have a cafe. There's usually only one or 200 people living there at a time. what's really sad about it is that, because I've read Soleri's book, who was the architect of archaeology,
How do you spell it?
and he envisioned 50,000 people to be living there.
ARCOSANTI. 2 words.
Okay.
Yeah, and his vision never came true. And not only that, the place is incomplete. It's in the permanent state of being incomplete because they ran out of funding.
Oh, well, yeah, they were trying to build a biosphere. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting project, Gary. It basically ran out of money in 1981.
Okay. I think if we could format it such that, number one, it doesn't have any leader, like decentralized, so, you know, if something wants to come fuck with us, they can't just come chop off, you know, the head or whatever. That would be probably inherently necessary. And then also to make the entity that we're creating, well, number one, to be as balanced and interwoven with the natural surroundings as possible, but number two, that like permanent living is not necessarily the goal, more that it's a flow spot that everyone can flow in and out of, and we would start it off, I'm assuming, with everybody still having their, you know, sort of own place, perhaps. I know if everyone's coming from far away, that wouldn't necessarily work, but I think it would be good to start it off as something where it's a project and people flow in and out as their normal life permits, until it becomes large enough and sustainable enough for people to live there permanently. That's just a thought.
That's how you build an outpost where everybody that stays there and does the work is going to be the ones that actually live there, and everybody else will get sucked back into the matrix. What I mean by that is, and I know that look because I've had that many times with the same thought process. You have to make a time or energy commitment to something, otherwise you're just going to end up burying layers in front of it. But more importantly, the people that are there are going to have a different perspective just because of how people have been trained to think about the people that come in and do like a weekend of work and then, you know, leave.
Right.
Because they're not the ones cleaning the vault toilet and, you know, digging the cellar, and they're not there for that.
Yeah, they would have.
So that introduces the traditional problems with hierarchy, and it takes really a distributed, decentralized infrastructure of not only labor, but of expectation and a willingness to participate that sees the things that need to happen through if nobody is assigned to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Or if that person isn't there for some reason. But at the same time, the kind of safeguards that people are used to living with within the organized structure of society do not exist in a situation like this, and it's absolutely imperative that certain things happen at certain times of the year. Otherwise, you're literally not going to eat, or you're going to freeze to death, or other calamitous events that would have been not an issue had there been 50 people on hand, or an issue if you have 20 people on hand. So there needs to really be a solid commitment to the actual system that's being designed and developed, because it needs people to do manual labor constantly. I have a friend that lives off-grid on 500 acres, 500 acres up in Northern California, and she grows weed. She's lived there for the last 15 years, and she is busy from sun up to sundown doing things, but she loves it because she doesn't have to go anywhere.
Right. Maybe that would be a good start, is everyone in their own little unique locale who's interested in doing this, go visit those types of places. If you're near this woman in Northern California, go visit her. We also could probably visit that location. We're not that far from the top part of California.
Well, if you were able to figure out how to get through her cattle puncture gate, and even where the fuck she lives, she's really, really remote.
Like, as in she wouldn't want to host guests?
There's a gathering that happens there every May, every year for the last 15 years or so, called Fire Mountain, and that's something that you can only go to if you're invited by people that know her directly or my friend Tracy directly. And there's about 300 people that will show up for the party every year, but unless you know one of those people, this is why I haven't been able to quit Facebook, by the way, because this is my network of core friends, the people that go to this, and if I haven't seen these people in like 10 years, most of them, some of them, I went up there 8 years ago, but if I have my friend Tracy that I just mentioned, on Facebook I have 180 mutual friends with this woman, and I know all of them from real life. So we've stuck together since 2006, and so that's the kind of landscape that you need for something like this, because it's not for flakes. You're literally moving off into the middle of the woods.
Yep.
And there's going to be surprises.
Yeah. Most definitely. Most definitely.
Whether it's the girl that loses her fucking mind and melts down and loses the ability to speak, and one day she just wakes up and has a cataclysmic nervous breakdown, or it's somebody in camp sat on a snake. There's all kinds of things. It's the real world.
There's a lot, and if people still have undealt with internal things, then all that shit will come out probably within the first couple days, and it will have to be dealt with. It needs to start out. It needs to have a firm foundation. So the initial few of the group, they just have to be internally strong, because it literally is stepping off of some sort of cliff, and you gotta fly. You can't just smack the bottom.
My cat has been sitting in front of the heater for the last half an hour. I have no idea how she's doing that. She's like 6 inches away from it.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably gonna wrap this up unless anyone else has any other burning desires or needs, discussion topics.
No, just go on the site and see if anything is broken, and if it's broken that you run into, tell me.
Okay.
I believe I've also invited you to a few groups that you need to accept the invite, but getting this system down. By the way, I back it up once a day, the database and the entire site contents. But getting this type of system perfectly in production before it tries to scale is really, really important. So that's why I keep bugging everybody to look at it and tell me when things are broken.
Yep.
Because there's at least 100 to 200 moving parts And that's not even counting all the different files that have program code that run. And most of that is relatively stable, but it's software. There's always surprises, but you can get it rolling along in such a way that it works really well. But you just have to hit this panel twice and change that button here, and
Yeah, I'll get you some feedback if I see anything messing up.
Okie dokie. Right now, the main thing is getting that market thing running, and some small I have a to-do list, but Daniel, I don't think you knew this, but there's going to be a marketplace feature on my tribe where you can buy site credits, and then you can take a class that's being offered in a group, like how Aurora does her class on Teachable. Just as
I didn't know that actually.
Just as an example, somebody that teaches a class could make a group, add their class to the marketplace, and then somebody on the site could go read the description, read the terms, and click buy, and then they could buy the class and then attend the class and have access to the invite to get to that group. So, how you go into the chat on Snail Tribe and you say stuff here and there?
Yeah.
That could be the discussion amongst the teacher and the students while the teacher is doing a video lecture over Jitsi. And the teacher could post assignments with the files, and the teacher could post, study guides or excerpts from books. But the whole point is to put together a system that acts as a marketplace for tangible skills that people have, to offer those skills to other people in a fluid, dynamic way where they don't have to be at that physical location, and it has literally been reduced to the simplicity level of, you want to do this, join this group, click the buy button, type in your card, and hit send. Done. You take the class, the person gets money, and that's what I'm putting together right now. So Gary texted it last night to buy $1 worth of something, but it was the first test, and it returned an error, so I'm troubleshooting that, but it's getting there.
Okay.
Rebecca, do you have any thoughts on the sustainable living idea?
I'm totally on board with it, and I'm working towards that right now, developing my own, honing in on my own skills and whatnot. So, yeah, that's a vision that I share as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Sounds good.
Rebecca, where do you live right now again?
I'm in Arizona,
Oh.
Chandler, Arizona. Yeah.
Oh, I know that place.
Yeah. It's grown quite a bit over the last 10 years.
Not quite as fast as Gilbert, even though it's still smaller.
Gilbert's grown exponentially.
I remember Phoenix in the 90s. It felt like a small town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so different.
I'm all out of bubblegum, Daniel.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
You're still ready to kick ass, though.
Wasn't that shot in Phoenix?
I think so.
Minus the part in Calabasas where he gets pushed down the hill by the alien news reporter.
What? Is this a show?
No.
They live.
They live.
Right.
Yeah, the scene where Roddy Piper gets pushed down the hill by the news anchor actually happened in Calabasas or Burbank or something like that. But most of the movie they shot on location in, I think, Phoenix.
Yeah. Alice Cooper lived there.
She still does.
Yeah. That was my first rock concert in 1997.
Oh my
Alice
God.
Cooper and Scorpions.
You almost sounded properly Russian there for a second when you started saying 1997.
That was in Tucson, too.
Huh.
Yeah, Cooperstown closed, I don't know, some years back.
He had his own town?
Yeah.
Wasn't it a restaurant?
Restaurant, yeah, town. Little, like...
Ted Nugent kind of has that going in Montana.
I think you mean Michigan.
Oh, yeah. There's a musician that's really famous that lives in Montana. I forget who it is, but he'll, like, go to a restaurant and close the door on the restaurant and, like, pay for everybody's food and then just have a raging, ridiculous party.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Right,
then
guys, we gotta go.
And then Bill Murray goes to people's house parties and does their dishes and doesn't even announce himself. And everybody looks up and all of a sudden there's Bill Murray doing your dishes. You're like, eh?
Funny.
All right, Daniel.
All right, take it easy.
See you,
I'll talk to you later.
All right, everybody. I'm gonna wrap this one up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Keep the vision moving forward. Peace.
Cheers.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. It's been a fun one. Take care. Dream up some good ways that you'd like to live in this place. If you're not actually living how you want to, you need to make a change.